What is your interpretation of our Second Amendment? Do you think that Americans have the right to bear arms? Yes or no? And just give me your brief overall view of it.
Pistol stabilizing braces, they're popular. Millions of people have them. But soon federal regulations are changing.
Augusta at the State House today in a public hearing over a last-minute push from Maine Democrats for a controversial red flag law.
Whenever a gun tragedy occurs in this country, we always hear the left say, we have to do something. We have to do more.
To ATF's rule on firearms with attached stabilizing braces, or what we call the pistol brace rule.
Wesley Hunt's speech. On January 13, 2023, the Attorney General signed the ATF Final Rule 2021R08F, known as Factoring Criteria for Firearms with Attached Stabilizing Braces. This rule amended the ATF's regulations to clarify when a rifle is designed, made, and intended to be fired from the shoulder. The final rule was published in the Federal Register on January 31, 2023. In response, Texas Representative Wesley Hunt delivered a passionate speech on the House floor, opposing this new arm legislation. Rep. Hunt expressed his strong support for his colleague Rep. Clyde's resolution to block what he described as an unconstitutional rule by the ATF that criminalizes pistol braces. He took to social media to emphasize his stance, stating, "Proud to stand on the House floor today in support of my colleague at Rep. Clyde's resolution to block the ATF's unconstitutional rule criminalizing pistol braces." In his speech, Rep. Hunt emphasized his personal identity and experiences, grounding his argument in his role as a husband, father, American, and Texan. He stated his firm opposition to any attempts to limit the right to self-defense, asserting that the Second Amendment should not be infringed upon.
What is your interpretation of our Second Amendment? Do you think that Americans have the right to bear arms? Yes or no? And just give me your brief overall view of it.
I don't get to decide that. The courts decide it. And the courts have said yes, is the answer to your question.
Okay. We have these Second Amendment rights because we know how important it is for us to maintain our constitutional republic and a functioning republic.
The law is, the Second Amendment jurisprudence is lengthy and changing.
Additionally, he highlighted his status as a Texan, a veteran, and a gun owner, noting that he owns multiple AR-15s primarily for hunting and protecting his family. He declared his determination to prevent harm to his children, wife, and family, emphasizing his commitment to ensuring their safety. Hunt provided statistical context to his argument, stating that only 6% of all armed homicides involve AR-15, or arms outfitted with a pistol brace, compared to 60% involving handguns. He argued that the legislation aimed to diminish Second Amendment rights without addressing the broader issue of armed crime. Hunt suggested that targeting a specific type of firearm would not significantly impact overall homicide rates, as perpetrators would simply find alternative arms. Addressing a common argument from gun control advocates, Rep. Hunt contested the notion that AR-15s are arms of war. Drawing on his military background as a 64 Delta Apache pilot who flew 55 combat missions in Baghdad, he differentiated between military-grade arms and civilian-made AR-15s, asserting that the latter are not suitable for combat. Hunt acknowledged the serious issue of mass slayings in the U.S., but placed the blame on individuals rather than arms. He pointed out the security measures in the halls of Congress, where he and his colleagues are protected by armed personnel, and questioned why similar protections were not afforded to children in schools. He argued for maintaining Second Amendment rights to ensure the safety of children, suggesting that instead of eroding these rights, efforts should be made to enhance security measures for vulnerable populations.
Biden in 2023 announced an executive order on gun control with the goal of, quote, increasing the effective use.
Pistol stabilizing braces, they're popular. Millions of people have them. But soon federal regulations are changing.
ATF has expanded upon the Safer Communities Act by issuing a new ruling that in practice will implement universal background checks.
Redefines these stabilizing braces as a short-barreled rifle.
Hunt also addressed the broader implications of arm control, linking it to a potential slide towards communism. He warned against disarming the American population, arguing that it would lead to increased government control and reduced safety for citizens. You disarm your population and then the government runs amok, and we, especially not in Texas, are not going to allow that to happen, he stated. He encouraged his colleagues to support the resolution to block the ATF's rule, framing it as a defense of constitutional rights and personal safety. In his concluding remarks, Hunt reiterated his commitment to opposing any measures that he perceived as threats to the Second Amendment. He emphasized the importance of protecting law-abiding gun owners and preventing the government from overstepping its bounds. He expressed his belief that preserving the right to bear arms is crucial for maintaining freedom and preventing government overreach. Hunt's speech reflects a broader debate on arm control in the U.S., where the balance between public safety and individual rights remains a contentious issue. His arguments highlight the perspectives of those who view arm ownership as a fundamental right and a necessary means of self-defense, particularly in the context of personal and familial safety. By grounding his speech in personal experience and statistical analysis, Hunt aimed to persuade his colleagues and the public of the importance of protecting Second Amendment rights against what he views as unconstitutional regulations. Wesley Hunt's speech on the House floor against new arm legislation is a fervent defense of the Second Amendment, framed within his personal experiences as a Texan, veteran, and arm owner. He argues against the ATF's rule on stabilizing braces, emphasizing the importance of protecting constitutional rights and enhancing security for children without infringing on the rights of law-abiding citizens. His speech underscores the ongoing debate over arm control and the complexities involved in balancing safety and freedom. Concerns about ATF regulations. During a House Judiciary Committee hearing, Wesley Hunt questioned ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach about the interpretation and implications of the Second Amendment. This exchange highlighted significant issues surrounding the rights of Americans to bear arms, the responsibilities of the ATF, and recent legislative measures impacting arm ownership.
Whenever a gun tragedy occurs in this country, we always hear the left say, we have to do something. We have to do more.
Relates to ATF's rule on firearms with attached stabilizing braces, or what we call the pistol brace rule.
Once legislation is passed, my colleagues on the left then say we have to always do more and more and more and more.
Support of Senator Kennedy's resolution of disapproval of the ATF's stabilizing brace rule.
And disarm our rights and take away our Second Amendment rights that have been given to us by our founding fathers.
Hunt, a staunch supporter of Second Amendment rights and an arm owner himself, framed his questions within the context of constitutional law and individual freedoms. He began by acknowledging Dettelbach's legal expertise, noting his background as an attorney. This recognition set a tone of respectful yet pointed inquiry aimed at understanding the ATF's stance on Second Amendment issues. Hunt's primary question was straightforward. What is your interpretation of the Second Amendment? Do you think that Americans have the right to bear arms? Dettelbach responded affirmatively, referencing the Supreme Court's rulings that have upheld the right to bear arms. He emphasized that his role as a lawyer and ATF director is to follow the interpretations set forth by the courts. Dettelbach indicated that the Supreme Court had provided clear guidance on the matter, emphasizing that the interpretation of the Second Amendment is determined by the courts rather than individual lawyers like himself. He noted that the jurisprudence surrounding the Second Amendment is extensive and subject to change, but ultimately it is the courts that have affirmed the right to bear arms. Hunt expressed his concern that the ATF's regulations are infringing on the rights of law-abiding citizens. He acknowledged the necessity of targeting bad guys with arms, but criticized measures that, in his view, impose undue burdens on responsible arm owners. Hunt articulated a common sentiment among Second Amendment advocates that the ATF's policies might be overstepping constitutional boundaries. Hunt asserted that he is an arm owner himself, emphasizing his lawful ownership. He expressed the significance of being able to protect his home and prevent tyrannical governments from infringing on the rights bestowed upon citizens in the Constitution. He argued that certain ATF regulations are making it more difficult for lawful citizens to exercise their rights. A significant part of Hunt's critique focused on red flag laws, which he contended are used to unjustly seize arms from individuals who have not committed crimes.
Augusta at the State House today in a public hearing over a last-minute push from Maine Democrats for a controversial red flag law.
So has the debate about whether new laws would be fair to law-abiding gun owners.
The bill would effectively bypass the need for a mental health evaluation to remove someone's guns if a judge grants an emergency order.
State lawmakers are considering a red flag law, but there's considerable pushback to that idea.
Red flag laws allow courts to order the temporary removal of arms from individuals deemed to pose a risk to themselves or others, based on concerns raised by family members or law enforcement. Hunt recalled a time when red flag laws were dismissed as a conspiracy theory, but noted their current presence in legislative and executive actions. He specifically pointed to the Safer Communities Act, signed into law by President Biden in 2022, which allocated $750 million for states to implement and improve red flag laws. Red flag laws are a type of pre-crime enforcement, where courts grant orders allowing for the seizure of arms from someone who hasn't committed an actual crime, Hunt explained. He argued that such laws infringe upon the rights of law-abiding citizens rather than focusing on actual criminals. Hunt's line of questioning and critique of the ATF reflect broader concerns within the Republican Party and among Second Amendment supporters. They argue that many arm control measures, including red flag laws, overreach and infringe upon constitutional rights. The debate over these issues is emblematic of the ongoing national conversation about the balance between public safety and individual freedoms. Advocates for stricter gun control measures argue that such laws are necessary to prevent mass shootings and reduce armed crime. Conversely, Second Amendment supporters emphasize the importance of protecting individual rights and preventing government overreach. Wesley Hunt's questioning of ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach underscores a fundamental tension in American politics: the balance between ensuring public safety and preserving constitutional rights. Hunt's arguments against what he perceives as ATF overreach and the implementation of red flag laws highlight the concerns of many arms rights advocates who fear that increased regulation will ultimately lead to the erosion of fundamental freedoms. This exchange serves as a microcosm of the broader debate over arm control in the U.S., illustrating the complexities and deeply held convictions that characterize both sides of the issue. As legislative and executive measures continue to evolve, the discourse around the Second Amendment and arms rights remains a critical and contentious aspect of American political life. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.